It is my pleasure to tell you a little bit about Sheela Murthy, an internationally renowned immigrant lawyer, entrepreneur, and philanthropist who is our keynote speaker today, talking about welcoming the stranger, immigration today. Ms. Murthy grew up in India, where she was trained as an attorney. When she won an international law competition and came to New York, she then applied to Harvard Law School and was accepted. After receiving her master's in law, she worked in a law firm in New York City. And when her husband, Sant Nayak, a technology and online consultant, obtained a job in Baltimore, they moved here, where she eventually established Murthy Law in 1994. Based on her own immigrant experience, she began to help others and created quite a presence on the website. The rest is history. Today, Ms. Murthy's law firm has over 100 employees specializing in immigration law, with offices in Baltimore, India, and the West Coast. As an immigrant attorney, Ms. Murthy has become a leader in her field, providing advice to the international media and other attorneys across the globe. She's been recognized for her outstanding legal abilities and received some of the highest accolades and honors from her peers. She and her husband have established the Murthy Nayak Foundation to channel their financial resources to improve the lives of women, children, and immigrants. A more extensive bio can be found in the program book on page 24 and in a newly published book about her life called Being Sheela. You can purchase it on her foundation website, which I will post in the chat. Thank you, Sheela, first of all, for your flexibility and being able to come this year instead of last year, and for, I'm sure, your wonderful words. There's no better person in our community to talk about welcoming stranger immigration today than you, Sheela Murthy, and we look forward to your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Helene. Good morning, everybody. I am truly, truly honored and delighted to join you this morning. I heard the wonderful words of welcome from so many of our legislators. Reading and learning more about the Federation of Jewish Women's Organizations, I was truly impressed. Congratulations, Mazel Tov, on your 104th anniversary celebrations this morning for this year. And what's so impressive is many of us talk about United We Stand, we know the philosophy, but very few people and organizations actually walk the talk. And so hats off to each of you amazing ladies. I guess we need women to rock the world. Talking about women, of course, this past weekend was Mother's Day. So thank you for everything you do as mothers, grandmothers, aunts, uncles for some of the men who are here with us today, and for really helping the world go round. You are the reason that the community and the society are where they are. And, you know, Mazel Tov again, congratulations for everything you've done for our community. Of course, as we heard, and by the way, thank you to Jamie Raskin, who I just heard talk about. He was, that I followed, or he followed me a couple years later at Harvard Law School. And I know it's been a really, really tough year for him and his family with his son, losing his son. And so it's, at the end of the day, we are all so connected with each other in deep and beautiful and meaningful ways. And I just loved, and I am so, so honored to be here to speak briefly on the topic of welcoming the stranger as the keynote. You know, I was thinking about the topic, welcoming the stranger. So, you know, wasn't your husband or wife, your spouse, the stranger before you fell madly in love, tied the knot, and spent maybe decades together? Similarly, wasn't your best friend, whether in school or college or even more recently, wasn't that a stranger till you got to know them and realized how wonderful and loving and trustworthy they can be, and they are to you in your life? We always fear the unknown, we fear the other. And I think I was thinking of the Buddhist, of the Dalai Lama, who, when he was asked about how do we know where to draw the line, you know, how do we know where to stop and protect or, you know, provide for ourselves and our families or for others, he said something to the effect of, there is no other, obviously implying that we're all one at the end of the day. And so I was truly impressed, because I know that even when the Jewish people fled Egypt, they were welcomed into new lands because as strangers when you first came. And similarly, and I know we heard a couple of the legislators talk about their families coming to America after the Holocaust. And so we were strangers, the Jewish people were strangers in this great land, the land of milk and honey, viewed as the nation of immigrants. And so immigration, of course, is the story of America. It's the kind of work we do each day at the Murthy Law Firm, which, thank you, Helene, for that fabulous, wonderful, kind introduction. And it's all about helping people to realize their great American dream of living and working in this greatest nation on earth. We talk of the land of milk and honey. It's always how you look at it. And I'm so pleased that we could talk about welcoming the stranger, because as I said, we could be the stranger right now, but for the grace of God, and it's our opportunity to welcome each other into this country and into our land. So when I said immigration is, immigration is America is a nation of immigrants. We all came from somewhere else, right? Our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, ancestors, other than possibly the Native Americans. It is the entrepreneurial spirit and the adventure, the risk-taking of our ancestors that has resulted in the blessings that we are here today together to celebrate this wonderful 104th anniversary of the Federation. Talking a little bit about immigration and immigrants, I too, of course, have been an immigrant from India. And I thought it would help for you to understand briefly, because we're all women and most of us are, and we're always have a healthy sense of curiosity. And I know Helene did a wonderful job introducing me and giving me that fabulous introduction. But, just a little bit more. So I grew up in India in a family with 3 girls. So we're three daughters to my parents. I was sandwiched, the middle child. I think some of you will relate to being the sandwiched child. And my father was in the Indian Army, and he came from he described himself as the child of a poor school teacher. And he joined the army because that was one way he could afford to get out of the cycle of poverty. And he studied and became an engineer. He was a civil and structural engineer. He did his master's. He was in the top 0.01%, got the 10th rank out of 10,000 people in the open public exams. And so education, like for most middle-class families, is the ticket to move forward. And so both my mother and my father stressed education as a big deal. And for I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Asian culture, and I've heard that this is not just in India, but in almost every part of Asia, where if you are not a doctor or an engineer, then you are guess what? A nobody. So when I said I am going to study law, fight for justice, and rights for the underprivileged and downtrodden, my father was like, Sheela, that's great. But how are you going to feed your family? How are you going to pay the bills? Do that on the side, so to speak. And I was like, it's okay, how hungry can I be? And I'll eat less food, I'll lose weight, I'll look great. I don't care. I just need to do this. This was my passion, my calling. I just believed in it so fundamentally. Even as a child, I've gone on marches, like some of you may relate to. None of you will relate to. You're too young. But 102 years ago, when the women's suffragists, in 1918, 1919, went on the marches for the right for women to vote, even in this incredible country, just 102 years ago. It's inconceivable to me. And here we are, we have a voice, we have rights, we have freedoms, we have options and opportunities. And so it's always like how you look at life, right? Everything in life is how we look at it. And so when we talk about immigrants and immigration, do we see them as others and outsiders, as the stranger? Do we see them as part of us? Are we all one? where we could change places. I always say, the glass of life is always half full or half empty, depending on how we look at it. And so I personally always choose to look at the glass of life as half full because it helps. I'm so sorry. This happens always at the most important time in life. Isn't that how life is? I appreciate your patience. So I'm not sure exactly where I got cut off in the sentence. And since I speak primarily a little off the cuff, where did it exactly stop?
You had talked about your background and were talking about all of us being strangers at some point.
Perfect. Thank you, Elise. Yes. So people.
You believe in the cup being half full.
Right.
There
and
you
the
go.
Cup being
That's my
half full.
theme.
Exactly.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And so people often ask me, Sheela, do you ever think of yourself as having 3 strikes against you? As a woman, as an immigrant to this great country, and as a minority? And, I thought about it and I thought, no, I actually am going to choose to look at those 3 as my 3 biggest attributes that help to make me unique and special and wonderful and different. And so I always say, irrespective of whether you're short or tall, blue-eyed or brown-eyed, dark-haired or light-haired, I don't care, whatever you describe, just think of yourself as being perfect, as being gorgeous and perfect, because we women sometimes we're so hard on ourselves, nothing is ever perfect for us. Today we're having a bad hair day or we're doing this or that. But at the end of the day, we know how gorgeous and beautiful we are. And even our perfections are actually, our so-called imperfections in our eyes are actually perfections in disguise to help us become stronger and better and more amazing and more awesome and contribute to the world. And so I was also telling you about, the doctors versus the lawyers. So in India, the 2 most important professions are doctor or engineer. Of course, both my other 2 sisters are medical doctors. One's an OBGYN, the other's an ophthalmologist and eye surgeon. And here I'm doing law in a country where lawyers are not respected. There isn't the same fear of the rule of law, like in this incredible country. I then come to America, of course, as you heard, to study at Harvard. And they said, you'll make a good living as a lawyer. And I said, I will? That's incredible. You get to do what you love to do, and you can actually make a decent living. What a great country. What a country, right? You can fight for justice, fight for rights, help other people, and actually make a decent living. How much better does it get than that? Actually, this past week on May 5th, was our firm's 27th anniversary. We have a long way to catch up to the Federation, nowhere close to 104. God willing, I should live till 104 like all of you, right? Like want to live till that great age to celebrate. But we celebrated this incredible anniversary. And as you heard from Helene, we were one of the first law firms in the world using the internet, one of the first law firms in the world giving away tons and tons of valuable free advice. And I remember when my husband, who I'll come to in a second, said, it's okay, the internet's going to change the world, honey. Just give away a bunch of free advice, as much, just give it away, give it all away for free. And I thought, is this crazy? Give away everything I own for free? How do I pay the bills? It reminded me of what my dad said. How do you pay? That doesn't make sense. And you know what? It's like they say, build it and they will come. The more we gave, the more people came to us, the more free information we gave away on the website. So we have a weekly Murthy bulletin, which goes out to a couple 100,000 people every week. We have the Murthy forum, which has 150,000 regular people visiting. And we just educate. Our philosophy is educate, empower, enrich, and enlighten people with the complex and ever-changing US immigration laws and regulations. And it's a lot. The US immigration system is one of the most complicated immigration systems in the world. And the reason I know that is because I have spoken all over the world, in Salzburg, Austria, and London, obviously in the US and India, explaining, and we have speakers talking about immigration from all over the world. And there is nothing as difficult, complex, as almost broad as the US immigration legal system. And yet, we try to make it as simple as possible through the website to educate, empower, enlighten, and enrich our people, every person. And I know Helene invited all of you to go listen to it. And so, part of the reason that a big part of the reason I started my own law firm, I worked with two wonderful law firms in the in Baltimore area, right here in Maryland, was because I didn't have a good experience with my immigration journey. My lawyer, in the 3 or 4 years that it then took to get my green card, didn't call me even one time. I don't remember getting a phone call except to ask for more money. And then I thought, if he's doing that to me, a fellow lawyer, a colleague, I wonder how he's treating the doctors, the engineers, the chefs, the cleaners, God forbid, the essential workers, people who don't have power and money. And so I've got to, like they say, when life gives you lemons, turn it into lemonade. Rather than looking at it as half empty, I said, okay, he's going to inspire me to want to give back and to create a law firm whose sole focus is taking good care of people and helping people. And so it comes back, if you do things with the right heart, whether it's immigrants or anybody, people will come back to us. And so all we did was continue to share and give and educate and empower. And, I used that very difficult, traumatic, sleepless nights, 3 or 4 years of tension and sleepless nights. I tried to turn it on its head and created a law firm that, as you heard from Helene, has become one of the big players. So people ask us, what kind of work do you do in immigration? And so our work is primarily what's called employment-based immigration. What's employment-based immigration? So US has a broad immigration system, right? You have family-based immigration. That is the most common way for people to enter the United States, is through family-based. A husband or wife filing for the spouse, adult children filing for parents, siblings, but that process, a brother or sister who's a citizen filing, can take between 15 to 20 years to get the green card. And a permanent resident parent applying for adult children can take 8 to 10 years. So it's a very, very slow process. So that's called family-based immigration. What is employment? Employment is, as the word term denotes, it's based on employment. So if a university, a hospital, if the Federation, for example, needs some technology people, and we find we have a shortage of technology people, you need to bring them in. What's the visa? The H-1B, professional specialty occupation visa. And so there are different classes in employment-based immigration. There are the EB1 for the Nobel Prize winners, the who's who in the world, right? You have outstanding professor researchers, you have senior executive CEO levels. So that's called EB1. EB2 are the master's degree holders. EB3 are the bachelor's degree holders. And then there's the lesser skilled workers. And so we are so honored and privileged to really help America bring the best and brightest from around the globe to our shores, to enrich America and make it an even greater country. Did you know that approximately 50% of the Nobel Prize winners in the United States in the STEM field, science, technology, engineering, and math, are foreign born? There's so much I can tell you that we are the leader in the world in so many fields of human endeavor. And yes, we have fantastic people here in the US, but I'm convinced that a big portion of why we are who we are, a world leader in almost every field of human endeavor, whether it is technology, arts, science, music, theater, is because we have welcomed the stranger. We bring people into our country. We bring the best and brightest, because our goal is, if you're willing to work hard, do well, and shine in life, contribute to this country, we welcome you with open arms. Because as I said earlier, we are at the end of it a nation of immigrants. And other than the Native Americans, most of us came here as immigrants. We are our ancestors. And I told you I would tell you very briefly about my husband. So I always say, who doesn't love a good love story, right? So here's this guy, also an immigrant, if long hair, now a long white beard, looks like a sage, Baba, sadhu, a rabbi, easily could pass off for a rabbi. totally opposite. So talking about stranger, them versus us, right? My father was in the army. Anything more than crew cut is considered funny and extremely long. And here's this guy with long hair. And, 35 years later, we're still here together. He was a professor at the Maryland Institute College of Art, the person who said, give away everything you own, just give away your knowledge and you will benefit from it, Sheela. And if this guy wasn't married to me, I would be convinced that he was trying to bankrupt me and put both of us in the poorhouse, right? And so here I am, thinking, could there be a human being more different than me in terms of how he looks at the world? I'm a total extrovert. If you didn't guess in the last 10, 15 minutes of me talking, I love sharing. I get energy by looking at your faces, your smiles, the look in your eyes. I need that to bring my personality out. And he's an introvert that just is very much at peace with his soul and spirit without seeing a single human being for weeks on end. Drives me crazy. Some of you will probably think I'm crazy. Most of this wasn't even my remarks, was in the last 14 or 15 months, I haven't met a single human being in person because it's, of course, the pandemic, and he is extremely nervous and concerned. And to respect him, I have done that. And so here I am speaking to 150 of my new best friends, or 160 of my new best friends, who now know so much about my life. And talking about my life, I know Helene talked a little bit about the book. A lot of people would say, but Sheela, your story is so good. Why don't you share client stories? Why don't you do this? And so I was truly honored and delighted when HarperCollins recently published the book that Helene referred to, Being Sheela, The Life Journey of an Immigration Lawyer. And it's got tons of stories and books and cases of our clients and my own story and the love story and how we met and fell in love. And you learn about a little more about Indian culture and Indian foods and recipes and all kinds of cool stuff. Talking about changing and giving and giving and giving. So because I worked in New York soon after I graduated from law school, I worked at a large international law firm. And then we moved to Maryland. When the tragic and the horrific events of September 11th occurred, my husband and I looked at each other and said, you know what, but for the grace of God, we could have been in New York at that time and we might not have been around. So back in 2001, so it's 2021, this year will be our 20th anniversary, we set up the Murthy Foundation, which we then changed to the Murthy Nayak Foundation, which is his last name, Vasant Nayak, to do good, to continue to help and to do good to both the country that has so generously adopted me, this incredible United States of America, and to my birth country, India, to help with women, empowerment of women, for education, for children, for immigration law and policy. And so we give a lot to the community. Of course, I was the first woman, for those of you who've done a little research, $1 million donor to the United Way. And I know they give hundreds of thousands of dollars each year, or were, I think, for many years, to the Associated and other organizations, and now to the American Immigration Council. Again, the more we've given, the more we've gotten back. And actually 100% of the proceeds from the book, 100% from the proceeds are going right back to giving back to the community, to doing good and to helping and taking care of each other. As I always say, my father would often say to me, but for the grace of God, you could have been the cleaning lady, the cleaning girl, because so many young girls when we were growing up were working. Because even though there are laws against child labor, so many mothers and parents had to give away their children, primarily daughters, girls, to clean in people's homes and to cook and help out, because that was the way they could feed their children. So there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of poverty, but you know what? If you try to look at the glass as half full, it's what can I do? How can we help? What can I do to change the world? And that's all I keep saying is, what can I do with my life to help somebody else? And it's such a blessing. It's such an honor and a privilege to be able to help others. And to whom much is given, much is expected. And I think all of us, the fact that we are here, the fact that we have technology, the fact that we have food, you have a fabulous meal provided to you by the Federation today and by our generous sponsors and all of you. The fact that God has given us so much, I think we all know how blessed we are and how the more we give, the more we shall receive. So that's the reason we decided to set up the foundation. 20 years ago this year. And I know many of you know stories, and I love sharing stories, right? I want to make sure Helene will give me the look if I'm 5 minutes away or time, because I did put a timer, but when my internet went off, I think my timer went off with it. No, I think I still have plenty of time, right, Helene, to share a couple stories. Okay, you'll make a sign at me if I'm going. So one of the stories I love sharing about attitude determining your altitude, which some of you may have heard, is about the 3 bricklayers. How many of you know that? Anyone raise their hand? I don't see too many hands raised on what's on my screen. So there's this lady walking in a construction site. She stops and asks the first person, "So what are you doing?" The bricklayer looks up at her and says, "Why, lady, can't you see? I'm laying bricks, I'm paving bricks." She smiles, she nods. She goes to the second person, second bricklayer, and says, "What are you doing?" And the guy says, "Well, lady, I come into work on time. I do whatever my supervisor or foreman tells me to do every day. I'm building some type of a building. I do a good, honest day's job." And she smiles, she nods, she walks over and asks the third person, "So what are you doing?" He puts his equipment down. He looks up at her with great excitement in his eyes and in his voice. He says, "Why, lady, can't you see? I'm helping to build one of the greatest cathedrals that was ever built in the history of civilizations. And I would have been a part of that process." All 3 of them were doing the exact same job. But guess who? You know what? This is the first time in my life it does this, and I don't know why it chooses to do it on a day that is so special. I really, you know what? Let's focus on the positive. I always say, if we were all together, we may not have had as many people attending sometimes, right? Because we can do it from the comfort and luxury of our homes. And so we have a lot more people attending. If we didn't get disconnected like this, how would we come back and look at each other's happy, gorgeous, beautiful faces? By the way, I was admiring that beautiful hat. I saw one of you wearing the jewelry, the clothes, the colors, the big smiles. I always say the most fabulous jewelry any one of us as women can wear is our smile. The big happy smile is more precious than the $1 million ring that you can wear, or necklace or earring or whatever. Anyway, so I shared with you the fabulous story, and everything is how we look at life. So do we choose to look at life as positive or negative, as just doing a job or doing something more? How many of you have heard of the starfish story? I'm sure every one of you has probably heard of the starfish story, right? Helene, do you want to share the starfish story? No, okay. So
you're our guest to speak, not me.
Well, we're all in this together. Life is a round, big circle. Whether you speak or I speak, the goal is to change hearts and minds, is to help people to think a little bit outside the box and to think differently. And anyway, so the 2 people are walking on the beach. The first guy watches his friend throw these starfish back every day. One day turns to his friend and says, "What's your problem? There's thousands and thousands of these starfish."
You didn't finish the bricklayer story.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize
what happened to the bricklayers.
Got it. Did it end? Did I end with the third one? Did I end or I didn't?
No, you said on the third one.
You didn't explain.
Got it.
Why the third one was better.
Oh, okay. Well, the third one puts his equipment down, looks up at her with amazement, with pride, and says something to the effect of, "I'm helping to build one of the greatest temples, cathedrals that was ever built in the history of civilization. And I would have been a part of that process." So remember, all 3 were doing the exact same job. But one of them the third bricklayer looked at his life as not just doing what was required, the minimally expected, but he was doing it with passion and purpose, with persistence, the 3 P's, passion, purpose, persistence. And when you work in your life with that, you are going to not just do a good, honest day's job, you are always going to give 100 times more, because your mind, heart, and soul, your spirit, your being is completely engrossed in giving back. So that was the difference. That was the difference. And so my question to you, to each of you is, when you do your work, do you give 100% of your soul, heart, and effort in what you do? Do you? And if you don't, remember the third brick layer. It's not what we do minimally in life that counts. It's always going above and beyond, because you connect to the passion, to the purpose of why we wake up every morning and go rushing to work. Why are you a member of the organization you are? Why did each of your organizations join the Federation of Jewish Women's Organizations? You didn't just walk the talk. You walk the talk, you talk the talk, you live the talk, you dream it. Each of you is passionately involved. And so if you can teach that and share the story with the world, because at the end of the day, you are the mommies, you are the grandmothers, you are the people that are influencing the hearts and minds of the future generations of this country, right? And so here it is, this person, the third brick layer, truly making an impact, not just with his work, but even each brick he puts it with such love, because he's helping to build the greatest temple that was ever built in the history of civilization. Glad that it didn't get disconnected there. Now let's just go to the story. So the starfish story. So if most of you have heard it, you know, he throws it back. Did he say, well, who cares about a few thousand starfish? And so the friend asked the friend, so why are you doing it? What difference does it make? And he, while throwing the one back, he says, guess what? For this particular starfish, it makes all the difference in the world. And that's how we look at our work in immigration as well. That each person, each family, each community, we throw back, we give the opposite. Instead of throwing them back into the ocean, we help them to come here and to be here legally, to be part. We don't look at them as welcoming the stranger. We look at them as welcoming us, a part of myself, a part of my soul, my spirit, that we are helping to make America this great country. We're helping the world's economy, because many of them send their money back to different parts of the world to take care of their parents, grandparents, their siblings' education, their marriages, all kinds of things. So we don't just fill forms like the first bricklayer number 1 and 2. We do our work with passion and purpose. Like the person who throws the starfish back, one person at a time, one starfish at a time that he was throwing, one person at a time, one family at a time, one university at a time, one hospital at a time. We help the doctors come in with our work in bringing them to enrich and make so many of our doctors work in medically underserved areas and health professional shortage areas where there's an extreme shortage of healthcare professionals taking care of America and Americans. And guess what? During this pandemic year, their work has become even more important and valuable, as you can only imagine. I often say, you know, life is a spiritual journey. We're not just human beings growing through the spiritual process, but we are spiritual beings going through the human process. So it's an opportunity for each of us to keep helping each other, to doing more and more good, to guiding each other, to helping each other, to enriching each other, to empowering each other. Now, some of you may say, but you know, there's so many problems. I can't do it. There's limitations. How can we do this? How can I do this? Good point. I agree. We all have limitations. We all have hurdles. We all have problems. And I will share one more story with you to talk about our limiting beliefs, which may prevent us to shining to our fullest extent. How many of you have heard of the baby elephant story? Helene, I don't see you nodding, so I'm going to guess it's no. So as most of you know, I grew up in India. And in India, of course, we have elephants. I don't want to say walking the streets because that would be an exaggeration, but in festivals and on special events, they do allow the elephants to walk on the street because they have them in the temples and everywhere. And did you know that they use a tiny metallic chain, the mahout, the elephant trainer, to tether the elephant when it's a baby? So the baby elephant pushes and kicks and screams and keeps trying to break from that thin metal chain metal chain and it doesn't succeed. So then it becomes the largest mammal on earth. The elephant has so much power. And guess what? The trainer still uses that same metal chain with the same thickness to tether it. Do you know why? Because the elephant thinks when it was little, it tried and tried and tried and was not successful. So what's the point of even trying? How many of us live our lives underutilizing our God-given talents and the gifts that we have because we, God bless them, whether it's our parents, our friends, or somebody might have planted a seed of negativity and doubt and of limiting beliefs in our heads. Are you going to allow anybody, oh, I hear an echo, anybody to come in the way of you shining to your full potential? Are you ever going to do that? Don't you deserve more and better? I think it was Nelson Mandela who once said, don't ever fear your limitations. Fear how much incredible and limitless potential we each have and power we each have. So go embrace that power. Go take back that control of your life. Realize, like the elephant, you know, there's research that shows that each of us as human beings only apparently uses 1/7 of our potential. Apparently, like iceberg, 6/7 of it is under the water, and only 1/7 of it is above the water. So each of us apparently only uses 1/7 of our full potential, even when we think I'm working so hard and doing so much. Go ahead, go take your life back, take control even more, shine. If you think you were shining before, shine brighter. If you think you were welcoming the stranger before, welcome them even more. Remember, science and research has shown that each of us is only using 1/7 of our full potential. There is 6/7 that we can each tap into. So I want to try and say, are each of you going to be like the third bricklayer in life as you go through life starting from today? Are each of you going to find your full potential in life, unlike that baby elephant? Are each of you going to go shine that life in your life and shine it for others along life's journey? Are you going to welcome the stranger, the person you feared most, the immigrants, the other people, the other, because the other is only us. We are all in this together. Continue to make yourself proud. Continue to make your parents, your ancestors, your grandparents, your families proud, because I know that each of you wouldn't be here today if you didn't believe in incredible love and power, compassion and care, opening your hearts and welcoming the stranger. But for the grace of God, we now today have the privilege and opportunity of not being that stranger, but welcoming that stranger. The only bank account that's ever going to matter in our lives is the bank account of good karma, the good deeds, the good thoughts, the good words, because that's going to matter in the afterlife. Of course, we need money to eat. Of course, we need food. Of course, we need to have some money in our bank account today to survive. But at the end of the day, our opening our hearts and minds truly and plentifully to others is going to build good karma for ourselves in the afterlife and forevermore, and plant the good karma for our children and grandchildren and nieces and nephews and everybody in the world. Continue to make us proud, continue to stay united, continue to rock the world. As an immigrant, I am delighted and honored to be part of this country, delighted and honored to speak to each of you. And I only wish you continued success, and thank you for the privilege and honor of allowing me to be a part of today's incredible celebration. I hope, Helene, you and your team will invite me back when we can meet in person so I can sign copies of my book so people can learn more and make the world go round even better. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I want to thank you, Sheela, for sharing your stories and for some of your interesting experience and issues that you dealt with as a person who immigrated and as an immigration attorney. Your energy and enthusiasm are contagious.